Religious texts are a key to unlocking a reading potential of people. I'm Dr. Emily Sherwood. If you're interested in literacy and education from a global perspective, please like and subscribe. Sharon was 50 years old, was a grandmother of 3 children, and had a 6th grade education. She's from rural Appalachia and just been passed under school her entire life, and she had never learned to read. When I worked with her, she was very clear in the text that she wanted to use. She wanted to use the Bible. And we began working, and by the time she was done, she could read and understand Bible stories within a relatively short period of time. Now, why was that? She had been passed on from school to school, from grade to grade, and never really got much of an education. She had married very young. She had never read. Really, most of her life, she had never had much of a literacy life at all. But suddenly, after a few sessions, she began reading. What happened? The answer was that Sharon was a very strong Christian. It was a big part of her life. She had grown up in the church. She went to church every week. And her schema, that means her background knowledge, helped her to understand the stories. She already knew most of these stories by oral language. She had heard them her entire life, and she knew some of them by heart. So when she wanted to read, she was able to use that to transfer her skills to written knowledge. She went from oral language to written knowledge. Sharon's not unusual, and religious text is often very overlooked when it comes to reading. And it's a primary thing that can be used in homes to enhance reading with children as well. So I also had, when I did my dissertation, there were 2 sisters in one of the families I studied. And we're going to call them Mariana and Lori. So Mariana was younger, and Lori was older. Lori was in high school. And Mariana was really struggling in her school. She was in public school, and she was just having a really hard time learning the language. Lori, who was a better student to begin with, and that was probably part of what was going on, but Lori was just really achieving. She was a very successful reader. She was doing well in school. And when I started talking to Mom, what I found was that Lori's school did a lot of Bible memorization. And that was a key for her to learn how to read, because the family they had a lot of faith. The family had a lot of faith. It was a very religious family, Protestant Christian from Venezuela. And when they were young, the main thing that Andrea, her mother, used was shared book reading. In other words, reading to children was the children's Bible. They really didn't use any other text when it came to reading to children. And between that and the church and all of the stories that Lori heard, she was able to really transfer her religious knowledge to language and literacy knowledge. And again, this story is not really unusual. So researchers have found all over the world that a primary text for children are religious texts. And that includes the Bible. Obviously, most families in Latin America and North America, that's their primary religious text. Also, many Catholic families use things like a catechism, or historical texts, things that the church has passed down through history. And also there has been a lot of work in England with families who immigrated from majority Muslim countries, and their main text is the Quran. And many children will learn how to read using the Quran. That's their first text. And they may even go to like a Saturday school or a school that operates outside of school hours, like an after-school school, to learn that. So religious texts, that's not something that we think of a lot when it comes to reading, but that can be really, really helpful. So if you're a parent watching this and maybe you don't have access to a lot of books, but your family is a family that has a faith, that can be a huge source text. I also, what's recommended to a Catholic principal that I was teaching to use this. She wanted to start a program for native literacy for Spanish speakers, because she had some Spanish speakers at her school, and she recognized that those children didn't have a lot of literacy in the home language. And the thing that I encouraged her to do with this community program she was starting, kind of a mentoring program where they had people from the community who were involved in the church come in and work with the children to provide some Spanish language and literacy support, I said, use the Bible and catechism if you want to. And I think that really surprised her, because that's not considered. Often we don't talk about that as a text, but that is a text. That is a key text. And so everyday things that you use in your home can be huge. Devotional books, anything that has written words can be big. So again, if you're in a family, maybe you don't have a lot of access to books, you may have a limited resource, you may be in a part of the world where there's not many books available, use your holy text if your family has a faith. And that is a huge, huge source of literacy. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much. And until next time, keep learning. And please like and subscribe if you're interested in education and literacy from a global perspective.